Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Enge, CEO of Stone Temple Consulting. And today is Gary, whose last name shall not be pronounced, from Google. He actually complains every time anyone tries to pronounce it, to be fair. And Mark Traphagen, who's going to be running the Q&A side of things. And Mark will be active on YouTube during the show and interacting with you all over there. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So here's the official book language on Gary. He's a Webmaster Trends Analyst at Google, working out of the Zurich office. Well, this is the book, according to SMX at least. He is dedicated to creating a better search experience for users by helping webmasters create websites that are both user and search engine friendly. When he's not looking for ways to improve web search, Gary can be found helping webmasters on social media, such as Google Plus and Twitter, and at conferences, doing all kinds of stuff. So, but you also told me you're pretty instrumental now on the Webmaster PR side of things, so that's pretty cool to know as well. Say hi, Gary.
If you think about it, usually when Barry, for example, has a question, or Jennifer from the SEM post has a question, then it certainly feels like the first thing is to ping John or me on Twitter, and if we don't answer, then they go to PR, and then sometimes we have to help PR give an answer. But yeah. I'm involved in with many things, not just PR. I was working for quite some time on search ranking as well, and different infrastructure pieces within search. So yeah, my hands in many jars.
Yeah, well, you're involved. You were instrumental in the HTTPS thing too, right? So
oh yeah, yeah.
These
guys made that.
Oh, those guys right there. Excellent. So that would suggest you're fairly technical.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So how do you explain this then?
I cannot confirm or deny anything about any operation without the express or, yeah. I just suck.
So what was that? What was that, Eric? What were we looking at there?
That was the SEO quiz score that Gary got on the Stone Temple, the consulting quiz. Sorry, the SEO quiz I published on Search Engine Land. To be fair, so Gary reported that he got 15 out of 20 on the quiz. To be fair, there's at least 2 of the questions that I acknowledge needed to be changed after chatting with Gary, and I suspect that a couple of the other issues really related to just probably taking it a little too quickly and not paying enough attention.
No, I would never do that.
So fair enough. But anyway, one of the big things that happened recently is Amit Singhal left Google after 15 years, and he's had an amazing presence, within the company. Can you talk about that a little bit? What he's meant and your thoughts on his departure?
Well, not too much. Basically, what he said, that's what I can tell you. But obviously, his departure is really bittersweet for my team. On the one hand, it's always a bit sad to see someone like Amit leave. He had an enormous positive impact on many teams inside Google. He had a huge positive impact on search, for example, and also on our users' lives, right? I mean, he launched probably thousands, or also approved thousands of launches, and all those launches affected users' searches. On the other hand, Amit is really passionate about many things, and I certainly understand that after 15 years, he would like to to try something else. And to be frank, I'm quite happy for him that he could actually do what or he could try something new that he's passionate about.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, in his post, he talked about wanting to spend some time, do some charitable stuff, giving back, spend some time with his family. That sounds like a great thing to do as well. So, obviously, he had a huge impact on the industry and search overall. So, I don't know him personally, but sure sounds like it was a good time for him to make that move. And there's been a lot of changes in the search team over the past couple of years. Matt Cutts stepped back, is still on leave. That kind of led to you becoming a bit more of a public face as well. So there are those of you who refer to you as the new Matt Cutts, but I think you're rather a different animal than Matt personally. But,
I'm definitely different than Matt, especially because we don't believe that there's a single person behind Matt or who's replacing Matt. I think that's a misconception. There's actually a whole team replacing Matt, or that replaced Matt. The only thing is that, I gain more visibility because I'm going to bigger conferences and because I have a big mouth on Twitter. And I like trolling people and give smartest responses. But I think other than that, actually the rest of the team is doing much better, and they are focusing on SMBs, for example, which is great. And I strongly believe that their impact is actually much bigger than mine.
Yeah, but you did end up with a very visible face, as you said, from being at a lot of the larger conferences, and that's what makes it interesting to have a chance to talk to you, because you get to talk to a lot of people at those conferences as well. But the new person that's taking over for Amit is, I'm going to try to pronounce it, Gianandrea or something like that, or Gianandrea.
We call him JG.
JG, yeah, it's easier. So we'll settle for that too. So JG is taking over. And I know you can't really say too much about him at this point, but one of the things that's interesting is that he evidently played or led the role in the rollout of RankBrain and has been integral to machine learning at Google over the past few years. And does that mean that we're going to see an increasing shift towards machine learning, or can you share some thoughts about that, or machine learning in Google in general? I know that's like probably a huge topic, but
it's a freaking huge topic. I just want you to keep in mind that machine learning and deep networks are not a magic syrup. Like, it's not like you will add it and suddenly like everything will become better. When you resort to machine learning, there are like tons of things that you have to consider. You have to consider, for example, how will you debug the output, and how will you oversee what the machine learning algorithms spit out. And you also have to have a team that will actually understand the output clearly. It's not enough to just train something and then add it to search, for example, or whatever. But for search, I actually don't have anything more to add or to add. We do think about how we can use machine learning for different things. Obviously, we are always exploring ways to improve search and to make our products better. But it is a big thing, and we try to tread carefully and not jump into it and then perhaps accidentally ruin something.
Well, right. And I've done my own little exploration of machine learning and gotten to a point where I've been able to develop some simple programs that train some simple neural networks. And
yeah, I think I saw your Twitter predictor or Twitter shares predictor.
yeah, it was a very simple tool.
I thought that's pretty awesome.
Well, I had fun with it. Basically, we had 1.9 million tweets worth of data, and we knew things like social authority or whether it had images or number of characters and things like that. And in the grand scheme of machine learning things, it's a very simple program, but it was useful to me to get some idea. And I think one of the things I learned about it is it constructs an algorithm which evidently, gives me an equation that allows me to predict the chances of getting a retweet. And okay, that's kind of cool, but you're right. There's a whole process of which you have to really put a lot of effort to figure out whether the resulting algorithm makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because fine, it constructed some algorithm and it fit the data somehow, but it seems to me there's an enormous amount of testing that has to follow because you don't have this human intuition that went into the creation of it, which by itself could be flawed. But you just have this machine that did a mechanical thing, and at the end it settled out somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you have this program, and it's either useful or not.
I mean, with anything that we launch, we do rigorous testing. We run sometimes experiments for months to make sure that what we launch will actually work or actually will improve search. And with machine learning, there was nothing different. We were testing it for a very, very long time, and we just wanted to make sure that RankBrain will actually do something great and will not decrease the accuracy and relevance of the results.
Right. I mean, in the case of RankBrain, as I understood it, and maybe you can't comment on this, but as I understood it, a lot of what was going on is understanding relationships in language so that you could better appreciate what things were closely related to one another. Mm-hmm. And that could help you understand more complex queries and perhaps also more complex or harder to parse web pages.
I mean, if you think about, for example, a query like, can you get a 100% score on Super Mario without walkthrough? This could be an actual query that we receive. And there's a negative term there that is very, very hard to catch with the regular systems that we had. And in fact, our old query parsers actually ignored those or ignored the without part. Mm-hmm. And RankBrain did an amazing job catching that and actually instructing our retrieval systems to get the right results. It's definitely something that that works really well with natural language queries, and its accuracy is way better than, for example, ranking engineers that worked 10 years on search.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So that had to be something that was in the works for an awfully long time to get. It was an awful lot of testing to get it to the point where you're comfortable rolling it out.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So and maybe you can't answer this either, but is machine learning used at all in things like Penguin or Panda or other algorithms like that?
I will not comment on that.
Okay. I see. I knew you might not be able to answer that one.
But I answered the previous one.
Well, there you go. So that was good. 1 for 2. Very, very cool. So let's talk about mobile a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite topic.
I've heard that in the past, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was actually when you were saying you were going to refuse to talk about it in a given keynote, but that was so. What are the most common problems people have on their mobile sites?
Huh. I would say that roboted resources are still the biggest problem. When we try to figure out if a page is mobile friendly or not, then we will use the rendered version of the page. And for rendering, we will try to bring in resources like JavaScript and CSS and whatever. And if we cannot bring in something because the resource is roboted, for example, disallowed for crawling, then we might not get right the content of the page or what device is meant it for. And I think that's a huge problem, and we are actually working with different CMSs, or at least worked with different CMSs to unrobot most of the resources that they could, because it's to me it feels kind of stupid, because it's like we won't fetch those resources too often. Like we wouldn't put servers to their knees by fetching those resources too often. So I definitely think that people should allow those. We are not going to index those resources anyway. So there's no good reason to not allow us crawling.
Right, and as I understand it, I mean, at this point, you can do a pretty good job of leveraging CSS and JavaScript to better, or parsing CSS and JavaScript, I guess I should say, to understand, excuse me, the page layout. And that's extremely helpful to you to be able to do that. And one of the things that you made clear recently is when somebody has something that requires a click, like to open up a JavaScript window or something like that, that you don't really pay attention to that content inside of that at this point.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, actually, it depends on how the content is brought in. Because if the content is hidden in the page, like with a CSS rule, then or a JavaScript, well, that would be also CSS it's just indirectly. Then we would be able to see that content. The content's weight in search wouldn't be that big, because the content is hidden. Like the user has to do something to actually see the content. But if you bring in the content with an AJAX call, for example, like an XML HTTP request, then that's a different story. And generally, we will not make that call. So, for example, if you have to click a button and then a JavaScript will query a server endpoint and will grab some HTML and then inject the HTML in the page, we will not do that, in most of the cases at least. I know that there are teams at Google that try to bring in that content as well. I'm not sure which teams, but we in web search, we don't really do that.
Right, but I mean, one of the reasons for treating that content differently is if it's not immediately visible on the page, then it's less accessible to the user. It's that you're able to get to it, but it's less accessible. So accessible, I should say. Yeah. So it makes sense to give it less weight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So back on the mobile side of things, what's the current situation with interstitials and how you're viewing those and handling those?
I'm assuming that you are talking about app install interstitials.
Right.
There's nothing new around there. We are doing exactly what we announced. We are going after app install interstitials, but there's nothing new really.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. What about AMP?
That's awesome.
AMP is awesome, yes.
So
I've been reading up a little bit about it, but can you just give everybody a little bit of an overview as to what it does and how it works?
Yeah, so basically you create, for each page you would create another page, or for each content you have on a single page, you would create another page with a new kind of markup, which is still HTML, it's just a bit different. And we would be, or not just us, but pretty much anyone would be able to load that content much faster because of how it's distributed across different caches that are set up on the internet. The pages would be fast for several reasons, because they share they share a common HTML with well-defined text, for example, which doesn't mean that developers can define their own text, but that's besides the point. Then you can use limited JavaScript, one of the bottlenecks nowadays. You can also use limited CSS, for example, and all these will speed up the pages considerably. And finally, as I said, we have, or not just us, but anyone who wants to set up caching network, they can, and then the AMP pages would be loaded much faster from a location closer to you. Imagine that you are, for example, in India, and you are trying to access a server in the US. Your connection would have to travel across the globe. With cache or with AMP cache, you can, or potentially you will not have to travel across the world with your connection, but rather access a local AMP cache, which already has your content loaded, which can save sometimes several seconds, and that's great, I think. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. So
Cool.
if I were to play it back a little bit, it's you have excuse me. Some of the elements of the page structure are coming from a common library, if you will, and because that's cached all over the globe, those portions of the page structure load very fast.
Yeah.
The rest of your content, which is custom to you, still has to come from your web server infrastructure, but the pieces that are in common are already loaded, and so that makes everything go faster. Did I get that roughly right?
Well, you can also cache a local copy if you want. So it's not necessarily just a library that you can cache, but you can also cache the content, and then you will I'm actually fuzzy about this part, but you will also have to refresh that, or to abide to some refresh rates at which you have to fetch the content again or drop the content from your cache. But basically, you have tons of freedom, unlike with other quick pages.
Right. So, as I understand it, at the announcement, Pinterest and Twitter are already participating in leveraging AMP as well. Did I read that right?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. So, as you said, it's not something that's just restricted to something you have to do through Google. It's an opportunity for anybody who.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally open. The library is on GitHub, as far as I know, so you can even contribute to it if you're a developer. Yeah, it's we believe in open standards in general, so we wanted to be open with this as well.
Right. Great. So let's talk a little bit about app indexing. What are the current things that Google does to support app indexing? And so I think a lot of the viewers probably don't know just how much that you're doing in that area, even though I don't think it's changed for a bit.
To be frank, I don't think that we are doing that much nowadays around that. We have about 100 billion links within apps indexed nowadays. It's still an important feature, and I definitely recommend that when you are creating an app, then you make sure that app indexing would work on them. But otherwise, there's pretty much nothing that I can recall that we did for app indexing nowadays.
Yeah, so I mean, don't you still have situations where you can get the app, well, the app page is shown, but also in the search results? That can happen if you have it installed.
Yeah, sure.
So that's something that I think is very useful. And then, at least historically, there were situations where you would actually recommend people to install the app under certain situations.
Yeah. I think we still have that option, but not from within app indexing. It moved to a different area, and I think nowadays it's sitting in Apps Universal instead of app indexing. Essentially, not much changed as far as I know, but if I remember correctly, the engagement on those installs or install buttons weren't high enough, or there weren't enough engagements to spend more resources on it, and we just moved it to another feature.
Right.
Instead of spending resources on it, maintaining it.
Right, that's common with Google. Is you'll try something, and then if it isn't working that well, then you'll back off from it.
Yeah, and I mean that's I think that's great in Google that we run tons of experiments with many things. With ranking, we run experiments all the freaking time. And also on the UI, we like to run experiments and see how people react to it. And sometimes we just want to leave something there. We want to launch something and then let people decide if they like this or not. So, for example, with this installs, we launched it. I don't know, a year ago or something, maybe more. I don't know. And then we saw that after N months, people didn't engage with it too much. So we just removed it because we also don't want to have too much clutter on the search result pages.
Well, right. When you're dealing with devices that size, it's a little messy to have clutter.
Yeah.
For sure. What's up with Penguin?
It's about 70 degrees outside. Why would penguins be here?
That's a great question.
I don't know. Someone asked me on Twitter a few days ago, and then I said that it's I don't remember which version I said, but we were aiming for this quarter to launch Penguin in this quarter. I'm not sure if that will happen. I haven't checked with the team for a while. We do definitely check in with them and ask them, like, what's up with Penguin, what's up with Penguin, but I think they, like, as any human, they have like a threshold for the nagging.
Being badgered, or yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and we try to not reach that threshold because if we do, then they would just not answer us anymore. I know that they are running the experiment, and no, you can't see that externally, whatever you might think. Not you, Eric, but like some other people. they are running the experiments, but we will also not launch something that we are not happy with. With Penguin, it can have a very strong effect on a page, and we want to make sure that if we apply or if Penguin affects a page, then we are absolutely sure that that page should be affected. We don't want to negatively affect a page without a good reason.
Right. Well, I mean, that's relates to what we were talking about before. Is since Penguin is an algorithm that can potentially have a very large impact, the amount of testing you have to do before every release is probably we'll just call it significant. And if you go through that testing and you find out that, oh my gosh, we're having negative impacts, more negative impacts than we want, you have to kind of start. We'll do another pass at it. And I'm imagining, because we talked about Penguin coming out even sometime last year, and imagine you're going through a cycle of not being happy with the results and just trying to get it right.
Yeah, I mean there's there's lots of brute tuning going on, like after a while you reach a phase where you have to actually do really tiny fine tuning on Penguin and algorithms in general, and sometimes that fine tuning actually can take way more time than the brute tuning. We are working hard to launch it as soon as possible. I can't say more than that.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And we're going to go to Q&A in just a second, public Q&A in just a second. But one last question for you from me, which is, give me some SEO misconception that drives you nuts, and let's dispel it right here. How's that for a challenge? Because now you're thinking, oh gosh, there's so many.
No, I actually can't think of anything, because I reached that phase where when I hear some misconception, then I'm just like, oh, okay. It's like there are very few things that annoy me. I don't know, actually. This morning we had that question about increased crawl rate, or whether increased crawl rate means that an update is going on or will go on in a few days. That's definitely a myth, for example.
Right.
I mean, crawling and ranking are two separate things. We don't necessarily recrawl the web when an update is going on, or we don't recrawl the web just because we had an update, because sooner or later we will recrawl it anyway.
Right. But my wild guess here is that crawling the web is something you do frequently.
Yeah.
Just a wild guess.
Yeah, you could say that, yes. I mean, sometimes for breakfast, sometimes for lunch, but we definitely recrawl the web often. Anyway, yeah, it has no connection, really. Right.
Fair enough. So, Mark, I know you've been collecting questions and things like that. What do you have that we should be taking from the audience?
Well, we got a lot of great questions, Eric, from our pre-registered viewers who are with us today, and we want to get through as many of those as we can. I tried to focus in on the ones that I think will have the most general interest for people. We had some very specific questions, people having problems with their sites and things like that. They're trying to get some free Google consultation from Gary, but we're going to try to benefit everybody here. So I want to plunge right in, Gary, with one that I thought was just particularly interesting. I think it was a very creative question from Kristen Drysdale. And she says, if you were making your last tweet that you knew all webmasters and future webmasters would hang on? The last word from Gary Illyes. What would it be? What would you leave with in a tweet with all of us if it was your last tweet? I hope she's not meaning like in your life, but maybe as a as a Google search spokesperson. What would you want to leave us with?
So the problem is that I'm quite a troll, and I would probably just say something utterly stupid. Probably it wouldn't be anything constructive. It would be funny for me, and that's it.
So is there any word of wisdom, if you had like a last chance to lead a word of wisdom with all of us in the SEO world, what would it be?
Geez, I don't think about these things. Come on, guys.
All right, we'll let you think about that if you.
So
go ahead.
Okay, this is another tweet that I did past weekend, I think. I was quite amused because I was reading these articles, not yours, Eric, about machine learning, and sometimes they were like, I don't know, like probably like 423 pages long, and I was just like scanning them and scanning and scanning and scanning, and there were these huge speculations about how this works and why this works and why are we doing this and how are we doing this. And then at the end of the article, or actually end of the articles, people just wrote that, well, you know what? Actually, you just have to focus on the user. And I'm like sitting there, it's like, so I read 423 pages, and that's what you tell me, that you have to focus on the user. And actually, that's what we were telling you for probably like 15 years, or even more. Seriously?
Yes, indeed. So to be fair, because I actually wrote an article like that.
Yeah, I saw it.
But having said that, you know, I've obviously been involved in SEO for a long time, and I've seen so many different people that just get focused on trying to work the edges of the algorithm and try to find the latest trick to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And as you said earlier, machine learning is no magic bullet, but it is a new tool, a new class of tools can come out of machine learning that puts Google in a better position to accomplish its objectives, which is to surface the best content, right? So I know when I say something like that, I'm thinking that, gosh, I've got this community of people, or a lot of people in the SEO world who still look for the latest ways to manipulate the algorithm, and the presence of machine learning is just another tool that Google can use to make those pursuits less fruitful.
Sure. Machine learning can be used for many, many things.
Sure.
But I'm actually just amused at the conclusions, or the general conclusion
sure.
is that you just have to design for users, and that's like duh.
There you have it, folks. Someday on Gary's tombstone, when you go to visit the
focus on the user.
The Gary thing will say, focus on the user. That's what we'll say on your tombstone.
Well, no, then it will say duh at the end.
Duh, right. All right, let's move on. This question comes from Kenichi Suzuki, who says, do you have any data that indicates the growth of voice search? So he'd like to know how many people are using that features now. So is that something that you track, that you're looking at, like how many people are using voice-activated search?
Konnichiwa, Suzuki-san. I don't actually have the latest number on that. I know that we obviously we do track this thing. Why wouldn't we? But I don't actually remember it.
Do you remember if it's growing? Like you see it growing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, in general, people speak more like a person to their phone. So, for example, queries like I don't know, when is my car reservation, or remind me to buy flour for my wife. These are, or these kind of queries are we are getting more and more queries like this. In fact, these action, we get I think 30 times more. No, we get 30 times as many action queries by voice as by typing. So that's really like a voice thing.
And is that affecting the way that you designing the algorithm, the way that you're responding?
Well,
it has to be, right?
Yes and no. If you go to SMX West, then Bishad will talk about this more. I don't want to undermine his talk. But for example, I just remembered a fact. We get, or last year, the number of mobile voice searches have more than doubled than the year before, which is, again, I don't remember the number, but obviously, if you see like 200 or that the number of voice searches are doubling, that means that we must get quite a few.
Right, and just for people who know when Gary refers to Bishad, that's the opening keynote, I believe, at SMX West. He's the VP of Conversational Search. So there'd be a lot more data available if you're able to get out to SMX West and see that presentation.
Eric and I will be there as well and speaking, and I'm sure Danny Sullivan appreciates this little free ad for SMX West.
There you go.
A great conference. You should come. All right, let's move on to it. This is a question from Stephanie Salmon from US News. And she asks about archived news content. There's been a lot of articles recently about that and some worries that people have that might be seen by Google as not valuable content. Kind of old news that's still on your site. Is there should you worry about that? Should you be...
No. No. I definitely think that people should not worry about that. They should leave it up. What would happen if we burned up all our libraries, for example?
That would not be a good thing, yes. We would lose a lot of historical human knowledge.
Yeah, and I think the same goes for news sites as well. At least in US libraries, I know that you can access newspaper archives as well. And news sites, when they archive their content, functions similarly. It's like a library containing wealth of information about humanity, and I think that should be definitely preserved, and people should be able to access it. Ultimately, our goal is to make the information or all information universally accessible and useful. I think we don't want to give up on that.
It makes sense to me that Google would understand that there's times that we want to go back. We want to research something. We want to know something that happened many years ago, and it's good for it to be there, right?
Yeah. Okay,
thank you. This question comes from our friend Bill Slosky, and it's going to be kind of a Bill Slosky type of question.
So it's about patents?
It's not what?
It's about patents?
It's going to be about the knowledge graph API. He asked, how are the result scores for different entities in Google's knowledge graph search API derived?
I have no idea.
I knew you were going to say that.
I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea. In fact, I wouldn't even know who to ask, but I can dig that up if someone pings me on Twitter about that.
Okay, well, there you go, Bill. I know he's listening, so you got your invitation. Expect your tweet as soon as you get off here, Gary. All right, let's move on then to, this is from Robert Nowajic, I believe the name is, and he just wants a very simple question. Is RankBrain operative for the whole world now? Is it global?
Yes.
Okay.
So in all languages.
What's that?
So in all languages.
To the best of my knowledge, to the best of my
even Hungarian?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Does RankBrain know how to pronounce ish, or however that's pronounced?
Actually, Mark was pronouncing it pretty good.
Well, as I told you before the show started, I lived for 2 summers in Hungary, so hopefully I picked up something there.
Opa, first you said 3 years, or 3 summers. Now you said 2 summers.
No, 2. 2 summers. Oh, that wasn't recorded. I was going to say it's on the record. All right, yeah, you don't want to get caught lying by Google, folks. You do not want to get caught lying by Google. Let's move on to another question. Save my neck. This is from Monica Schmidt, who asks, will virtual reality or augmented reality change the terms of influence in search, process, and result? And just simplifying that, like, is virtual reality, which we all know is coming, and is that going to have an effect on search? Are you guys thinking about that?
No idea. VR is pretty new. I mean, it's been increasing the past few years, its usage, and we've seen like different results or different implementations which had different qualities. I have no idea where this is going, but it's definitely exciting. Obviously, if we can try something with VR and search, we will try it. Hell yeah, why not? It's interesting, it's exciting, it's fun, and that's pretty much all what Google is about.
Right. I just wonder if there will be new ways, just as we've seen. You mentioned earlier that people ask questions, they query quite differently by voice than they do by typing. So will there be some way of querying, through virtual reality, the virtual reality world, interacting with a search engine that way?
I don't know. I mean, we could speculate about this, but we are not there yet. We will definitely try different ways. Obviously, we will. I mean, we as in developers in general, all over the world, will have to figure out how to actually make controlling the display, the UI, easy. When wearing a VR set. Nowadays, I tried only a couple VR sets, and controlling the UI wasn't all that easy. So we also have to figure that out. There are tons of things that we have to figure out, and then we will run experiments. We will come up with fun ideas, probably.
Yeah, I can think
what happens.
I can think of where I might be, in a virtual world, and I see something, maybe it's a simulation of something in the real world, at it, and I want to know what it is. What is that building, or what is that event? To be able to just within that world query Google. Very interesting.
I mean, I can also imagine something like nowadays people spend more and more time on explorations. Like they go to a website and then I don't know, they will just step on some, or Wikipedia, great example. You go to Wikipedia to read about glasses, and you end up and you realize that you ended up on how to make light bulbs 7 hours later.
Oh, 7 hours later. That's somebody with too much time on their hands, Gary.
Yeah, I'm not sleeping much. Anyway. And I can definitely imagine something like having something in front of me and with my hand just like scrolling or something like that. But I can imagine the same thing in search as well. Even now we have immersive experiences for different things, and those could be in theory controlled with a VR set or presented in a VR set.
Right.
So let me shift gears back to, we have to come back to Penguin, right? You knew that was going to happen.
Obviously.
And Jesse McDonald asked a question. His question was kind of very specific. I'm going to generalize it just a little bit more. His question had to do with real-time Penguin. We've been told that the next Penguin update will be real-time. What will be different for us in the SEO world, if anything? You think, how will we experience that differently once that happens?
My problem is now that we didn't think yet about how to communicate this, so I'm making things up as we go. So the first thing will be that if your pages are affected by Penguin, then generally you will be able to get rid of that effect much faster. So you would be able to, well, you will definitely be able to see that there's something going on, like your rankings are dropping. You can easily think back what you did, what you changed, if anything, on the site or external to the site, like off-site SEO or link building or whatever, and then revert those changes and see if that fixes it.
So it's kind of more, go ahead. This is more real-time feedback in a sense that you can see.
Yeah, I mean,
it was gone wrong, and you can see more quickly if you're doing the right thing to get back.
Yeah, of course, like we will have to recrawl the pages, and sometimes that can take a lot of time. Sometimes weeks.
So it's real time.
But
air quotes.
It's real time with the data you have available, but you don't have the data available until you redo the crawls of things and you discover the new data, right?
There you go.
So there's some natural latency in there, and as I understood it, historically there was some hesitancy to make things real time like that because potentially people who were doing the wrong things could do a lot of experimentation to figure out what wrong things they were able to get away with and which ones they couldn't. But it seems like you have a lot higher degree of confidence now that would cause you to think that, okay, now we can make it a bit more real time, which of course is good for people who have made innocent mistakes and try to learn, or maybe they made not so innocent mistakes, but they're willing to reform.
So what I've seen is that it's not people making innocent mistakes, but rather they're SEOs. There are, I know this will be shocking, but there are bad SEOs out there.
Damn.
I know.
Some of them swear. Some of the good ones.
And most of
very quickly say some of the good ones swear.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, most of the legitimate sites that I looked at that were affected by Penguin were small businesses, or well, actually not that many small businesses. Well, in general, businesses that hired an SEO who did something nasty. And this just goes back to there are things that as a site owner or a content owner you can do without an SEO. I don't say that drop all SEOs, because SEOs can do also magic. I know that I know some of the sites that you're working with, for example, and I know that they are doing amazing. Or there's also Bruce Clay, for example, who has a great team. There are SEO companies that are really, really good, but you have to be careful how you choose your SEO team, and look at what they did in the past. Look at talk to the other clients, perhaps. I don't know, but you have to figure out a way to make sure that the people that you are letting to touch your website will do a good job. That they know what they are doing. Yeah. So
an analogy would be as someone who is a father and has a daughter. There's a certain amount of scrutiny that goes into guys that are allowed to date your daughter, and you might not actually have control over that. But the same mental process you go through there, maybe you should apply to your SEO agency, because you're kind of letting them get a hold of your, company jewels, so to speak. And you got to be careful.
That sounded weird.
Okay. Well,
all right, that's all we have time for.
All right, I'll stop. Yes, next question.
Bharati Ahuja asks, do you think that Google should have an SEO certification program just like it has an AdWords certification?
Yeah, we were thinking a lot about this, a lot, and then a bit more, and we always end up with the conclusion that no, we shouldn't. There are many reasons why that would be a good idea. There are way more, many reasons why that would be a bad idea. If we endorse SEOs, then that would also mean that we actually have to perhaps train them, which would be nonsense because we don't. I mean, first of all, it wouldn't be scalable to train I don't know how many people. Second, if we do go down that path, then we will have to hire more people, which costs money. We have to get back that money somehow, so we would ask for money. Search doesn't ask for money for anything, so there's like already a conflict there. I don't know. There were tons of things that we brought up against this. My short answer is no. We will not have that anytime soon. And that's it.
There you go.
We have time for one more question, Gary? Or Eric? Sorry.
Yeah, we have time for one more.
Great.
Yeah, don't consider me. It's just whatever. Don't ask me.
This is one of those ones that Gary's going to hate. No, it's not about.
If you already know that, why?
Okay. Finish on a strong note here. Go.
Yeah, just because it's going to, it's not going to be right apparent on the top of your mind is what I mean. You got to think about this one. But okay, this is from Gary York, who runs a small business, and he says, what would be your top recommendations for business owners who are not SEO savvy and on a limited budget? When he says limited budget, he's thinking like, I'm not going to be able to hire Eric Enge, I'm not going to be able to hire Bruce Clay. What can I do as a small business owner? What's the main things that I could do to improve my SEO in a good way that's not going to kill my budget? What are the simple things that everyone should be doing?
I think you want to reach a state where you are comfortable with the amount of content that you have on the site. It's a myth that you always have to publish new content. If you have stable, static content, that can also work pretty well. And you don't have to freak out that we don't recrawl that often, because as soon as we realize that you don't refresh the content, we will just crawl less. But that doesn't mean that you cannot rank with that. Once you are comfortable with the amount of content, quality content that you have, you want to make sure that people know about your service. People know about your website. So you probably want to talk to people about your website. You want to convince them that you have quality content or quality services. For that, you probably want to implement something like reviews or ratings on your site, which again can be done with gadgets or widgets or whatever they are called nowadays. So it's not complicated. And there are social networks. I see that on Facebook sometimes people post that, hey, I found this amazing little grocery shop, and they have Italian stuff, and they are actually importing Italian stuff, and they are amazing. And actually, this happened when I was in Dallas. There was this little Italian shop, grocery shop. I don't remember the neighborhood, but they had the most amazing sandwiches ever. And they just do sometimes post on Facebook or whatever social network, and they tell people that, oh, we got this new product, see what others said about it. And that's it. And the more you talk about your business, and the more people you talk, or the more people start talking about the business, the more visitors you get, and potentially more customers. They will be also very targeted, because that's what you actually want, targeted users, because they know why are they going to that site. Someone told them that it's great for something, like, I don't know, Italian pizza or whatever. So they are going that for that purpose. And yeah, I would do that. Talk about how awesome my site is, and tell everyone that they should go there and buy stuff. Just don't spam. Don't turn on the black side.
There you go. So from time immemorial, it's not been enough to produce a great product, right? You gotta market it effectively as well.
Yeah, yeah. But
so you don't hate that. You didn't hate that question so much after all. That's good.
There you go. Well, anyway, it looks like we're at the top of the hour, so it's time to call an end to it. But Gary, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. It's been awesome. I'm sure a lot of the viewers got some great value of that. And Mark, fantastic job with the Q&A as
you look
expected.
little green today, Mark.
Sorry, what?
Pardon me?
You looked a little green today, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little green. I don't know why. It's strange, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, so for those of you who don't know, Mark is in our video studio upstairs, so he's got a green screen wall behind him. So maybe next time we'll have him wear a green shirt and make Mark disappear. He'll be a floating head. We really ought to try that. I think it would be fun to do.
There are people out there who would love to make me disappear, so that might be good.
Oh, come on.
Hey, I just want to take a quick serious moment to thank all the people. I just want to take a quick moment to thank all the people who registered for this event, and especially those who submitted questions. We had many, many more questions than we could get to Gary in this half hour, but thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
All right, thank you, and have a great evening, Gary. We'll see you out in California next West.
Yep.
And we look forward to that. Thank you, everybody.
You guys are also coming to Google Dance, right?
I'll be there, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to